morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you. Keith Bush from the Education Department, but I'm here representing faculty development. Welcome to Primetime at the BU Library. Primetime at the BU Library's mission is to encourage lifelong learning beyond the classroom. Faculty, students, and staff for these presentations, which are a collaboration of many different offices on campus with the friends of the BU Library. Today we welcome Dr. J. Rasmussen for the third part to talk about teaching series engaging learners during the lecture process. And on Tuesday we welcome Cambridge scholars Adam Johnson and Narrated Powerpoints as they discuss their research, decision making in the brain, algorithms and personality. Sounds interesting. Well, let's welcome Jay.
Hopefully everybody has a handout packet here. Anybody need one still? There's one right on the table there. I'll be making reference to several of the items that are on this agenda here that have kind of small numbers by them. For example, we've got our introduction going on here, and then we'll be talking about lecture effectiveness. I'll be using a strategy called the anticipation gap. You see there's a little number 13 by that. What that number is referring to is a specific handout in this larger packet. So if you don't have one of these packets, I've got some extra ones up on this little table right at the end. So number 13 is described more fully there, and then a little bit later we're going to move into reader reaction, which is number 20. Again, number 20 would be listed in this packet. So that's what these are referring to. A lot of people do that have been coming to these, and then some don't. So in fact, let me just hand out some real quick. If you don't have one of these, you can get one too. Anybody else that would like one of these too? So this is really the larger, not the larger set of packets. Everybody else need one of these also? Yep. Good. Okay. All right. Lindy, there's a kind of a blue handout set for today then too. Okay. Well, maybe you can thumb through those later. That's the danger of giving anything out this big right now. So maybe you can take a look at them later. But those are the references anyhow. The workshop today is really going to be focusing on the idea, like Keith said, of engaging learners during that lecture process. It's one of a part 3 of a 4-part series, and then there will be kind of a follow-up session coming on May 5th. And I hope you can attend that one. It's really built around the idea of how do we get our students really reading text for class, and then how do we really, in a sense, help them get some meaning out of that text that they're working with. So that will be the focus of that session. So the one today, you look at the title of it, and you think, lecture. And a lot of images come to mind, most of them kind of revolving around the idea of boring and how long is it going to last and that type of thing. And a lot of negative connotations that go with it. And you probably wonder why is a guy like me, who is up here espousing the values of engaging learners, even talking about lecture, using that L word as a part of things. But just to tip my hand a little bit, I honestly do believe that there's really a time and a place for lecturing. And I would suspect that everybody in this room here has done some lecturing, and it probably makes up a pretty big part of what you do on a day-to-day basis. So my contention is that lecturing is a tool that we have as instructors, and it's very appropriate at times. It's also not appropriate at times too. But I think it's really critical that we take a look at what the strengths of lectures are, what some of the weaknesses of lectures are, and then also take a look at just some guiding principles and practices that we can keep in mind, as we do lectures. I also think lecturing is really a critical part of the whole engagement process as well. Because if we just run with engagement strategies, and you've got 75 of them here, if we're engaging students around nothing of any significance, I don't think a whole lot of learning is going to take place. So I really like the idea of engaged learning strategies to complement lectures in a sense. using the lecture time as a time to really lay out some content as best we can, and then getting the learner really engaged with that content in some meaningful way. So I think they work well in tandem. I don't think they're by nature in opposition to each other. So that's really what we're going to focus on today, the idea of looking at what are effective uses of lectures, not effective, and like I said, what are some guiding principles and practices that can really help us as lecturers. That'll be the focus of it. I'm just going to tip my hand a little bit more about, I'm just going to call these my top 4 strategies to complement lectures. Okay, and this is nothing but my opinion, but these are my all-time favorite. And you've seen some of these already. The first one is what I call listening teams. And if you're the first workshop I did, I actually modeled it there. What happens with listening teams is that you build the best lecture you can. Maybe it's a 15-minute lecture, 20-minute lecture. You build the best lecture you possibly can. And then you're letting the audience know that they are going to be in listening teams. And they have a certain role as one of those team members. So if I were to do it here, I would say, this group here, your role is going to be to find something you agree with in what I say in my lecture. I might say, this group here, your role is to find something you disagree with in the lecture that I'm about to deliver. This group over here, your idea is to think of some examples of something that you can connect with. Okay, so they each have a role, and then the lecture is delivered. At that point, then, I actually generally get some kind of discussion going on because they've thought about, they know what their role is. So then I'm going to hear a little bit maybe from my agreeers, maybe my disagreeers, example givers. And I can make up my groups however I want, based on whatever that lecture is about. That's a strategy I like a lot. I think it really gets them thinking critically. We wind up normally with a very good discussion that comes after that. Another one that I really like a lot, we're going to do this one today, is called an anticipation guide. And what I do with this one is I'll identify maybe anywhere from 6 to 10 components of the lecture that I think are especially critical. I write them down, and then I have students look at those ahead of time before the lecture and kind of commit, like thinking something will be true or something won't be true. It might be true, might not be true. So they're kind of committing a little bit. They're thinking about the content before it's ever delivered in the lecture. So then the lecture happens. Okay? Then I bring them right back to that anticipation guide at the end. And then they have to take a look again at those critical parts of the lecture and see were they really right. And that's one that we'll do today, actually. And then another that I do like a lot is, I just call it reader reaction. And that being the idea that anytime you have a lecture that's going to span a long chunk of time, and by that I mean something like 25 minutes, 30 minutes, anytime you've got to stand and deliver for that amount of time, it's really hard for your listeners to stay with you. So what I've started to do is actually kind of write those lectures down. Okay? And I'm getting students lecture notes. So instead of me standing delivering the lecture, it's written down. And we're going to work on this one today as well, too. The students then have a chance to read through it. And the reading can happen before class. Sometimes I'll actually do it in class, too. And as they're reading, they're going to put down specific comments in that reading. And those comments then are going to be what we use to really facilitate the discussion in some way. It takes some time up front because you have to write all your lecture notes down, and that's kind of what I did today. It took some time to get it all written down. But you've got a written record of it then for future classes. And the students like it because they've got something really concrete that they can hold on to. So when I use my class time then, some of the class time is devoted to reading the material, if I choose to do it that way. But what I've found is that students can read a lot faster than they can listen to me talk. Okay? So it's about double the speed that they can read something versus listening to it. So then I find that the time that we have in class is really used on higher level thinking skills. It's really kind of analyzing the material, that's been read in some way. So they're taken out of that role of just being a scribe, trying to write everything down. They got that done. Now they're really starting to think about it in a little deeper level. So that's one strategy. Another one that I'm moving to much more now is using narrated PowerPoints that students actually view before class. And again, I want to use that class time to really process the material, think at a deeper level about it. And with the narrated PowerPoints, I found it's helpful to give them some discussion questions, some things to be ready to talk about. not just watch the narrated PowerPoint, but be ready to talk about some things. And then we might be in smaller groups, we might do some large group thing, we can really vary. Right? So it's really not, again, it's using that class time to focus on that processing of the material versus just the delivery, of the material. So these are kind of my top 4. But in this packet, and I'll identify, there's about 35 other strategies that you can connect, I think, pretty well with lecture. And we'll see what those are in just a second. With the piece that you've got in there, we're going to go ahead and run through the anticipation guide like I was talking about. So if you could turn in your blue packet, not the green one, if you could turn in your blue packet to the first page that you've got, catchy title on the top, lecture. That will be the one that you want to have here. What I'd like you to do is, if you're kind of seated by yourself at this point, I'd like you to move and sit next to a partner. Listen to your rules here now. You're going to sit next to a partner, and then I'd like you to read each of the items and then talk with your partner about whether or not you agree with that or disagree with it. And then you're going to put a little mark in that before reading column. All right. Now you talk about it. You may disagree, so you kind of keep talking a little bit. If you need to fight, go ahead and do that. Whatever you need to do, but you need to agree on something. All right. So put your little mark for each of the 10 items that are there. When we're finished up with these 10 items, then we're actually going to do a little bit of reading. No peeking ahead of time here. So we're going to start with the anticipation guide. I should tell you that we're going to bring a little competition into this too. So we're going to have a couple pairs here that might just win something. Okay. And I like to give good prizes too. I don't just give chintzy prizes. So my prizes are, I've got representations of them in my pocket here. So one of the prizes, which is represented by this bill, is a little bit of addition to your next paycheck when it comes out. I'm a member of the J&J Club here at Bethel, and I've got some pretty good connections with the kind of top dog around here. And he'll just kind of slip in about another $20,000 into your next check. Nobody will notice. Okay, so that's one possibility. There'll be a team that'll get that. The other possibility is this represents a Lexus. It's not an 11. It's an 010. Sorry, about 20,000 miles on it. That's an option too. We might have a team that wins that. The other possibility, this is a business card for a little casita that we own in Mexico. And this would involve 2 weeks stay there, airfare there, and all expenses when you're there, meals and so forth too. Right? So these are 3 prizes. So if we've got a group here that nails 10 out of 10 on the end, okay, nails all of them, I mean, there's some prizes that are involved in this too. Okay, so that's kind of how that goes. Now we'll just see.
Why are you teasing us, Jay?
How do you know I'm teasing you? My wife gets mad at me giving away this cars and all that kind of stuff, but I just do it. Just that kind of stuff. Yep. All right. Anybody not clear on your task right now? So you need a partner. Go through the 10. Don't take forever. You can spend an hour analyzing these. I'm not, especially college professors. You guys are like the worst at this. Okay, so just kind of work your way through it now. Good. I'm going to stop you after a little bit, too. Yeah. I'll have another set of directions when we get here.
Oh, go down and use those slides. Agree or disagree, 90% of the information. First 2 minutes, 9%. Right. You think everything first
I don't know.
You're supposed to come to some consensus on this.
Yes, that's true too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just work this one here. Yep, exactly. So either exactly. Yep, and then you're going to read the piece of the Sure.
Jay, are you guys that would be every 20 minutes. It makes sense.
Okay, we've got a couple teams that are finished up with it right now. Notice how I use teams here. This is a little competition. I'm going to give you the next set of directions if I could. So if you're ready to move on, go ahead. If you're still working on it, just listen a little bit here. When you finish up with kind of the pre-reading part of it, then what I'd like you to do is you're going to go ahead and read the piece that you've got in there. So instead of me lecturing, I'm lecturing, which would be a bit ironic here. I put my notes down. They're there. As you're reading through those notes, what I'd like you to do is respond. And just take your pencil pen and just put some margin notes in. Now you might put notes in about things you agree with, things you disagree with. These are just options for you. You know, questions you might have, examples, you know, things that you want to try. So as you're reading it, I want you to kind of monitor what is really grabbing your attention. Like, you know, what do you really find yourself thinking about, engaged with? And then if you could, just put some little margin notes there. And we're going to come back and hear some of your thoughts as well, too. Okay, as you're reading through this, all of a sudden you're going to start seeing some of the things that you've been putting little check marks by, too, as well. Okay? But if you haven't finished the 10 items, do that. You do not officially enter this game until you've got all 10 marks in there. So you've got to have those before you get going. Okay? So when you're ready to read, start reading that. Otherwise, just talk until you're ready. You don't do the after reading part yet. Yep, that'll come after the read. got a couple people now that are finishing up with the reading. If you are finished up with that, why don't you come back to your anticipation guide then, and then take a look at those same items, those same 10 that you started with. Kind of fill out that column on the right-hand side then. If you're not finished, just go ahead and keep reading. And we're going to talk probably in a couple minutes here to get some of your reactions to what you've been reading and thinking about here.
No, you're right.
I think we're going to go ahead and talk here. We're kind of fighting the clock just a little bit. Let me ask you to think about something first, and then we'll hear what some of your comments are. What I'd like everybody to do, if you could, is I'd like you to get in your mind a summary statement of what it is that you've just read now. You might not have finished the whole thing, but you're probably getting the gist of it. So in your mind, I'd like you to have a summary statement of what you read. It might be a sentence, might be a couple sentences. How would you summarize it? Just have something in mind here. Okay, let's hear a couple ideas. So let's maybe hear something from kind of this group, and maybe over here, and then over here as well. So Dan, why don't you start?
You got to simplify, you got to clarify.
Okay. Okay. Very precise. Okay. I want somebody from this group. What did you think of? Kind of a summary of what it is you just read here. How would you say it?
That a lecture still needs to be student-oriented, not instructor-oriented.
Okay. How about somebody from over here? How would you summarize what you just read? It's interesting to hear kind of the different pieces here. Just anybody from here. See?
Well, lectures can be good or they can be evil.
Okay, evil. Okay. All right. Let's do another way.
I would include a sentence that said something about strategies on how
Okay.
to make your lecture more effective.
Okay. Any other little pieces you would have added? We've had kind of 4 parts to it. Anything else you'd add you think would be critical in there if we're building this incredible summary here? What we just read. What else would you add? Anything else in there?
Just benefits and challenges to lecturing.
Say it again, Pete?
Just benefits and challenges to within lecturing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, perfect.
Lecture can be an effective tool used in conjunction with other effective means of discussion.
Other strategies
Not just by
as well.
itself.
Yeah, not just by itself. The other pieces you showed.
Maybe even the effects of lecturing on students, you know, the results and stuff.
Yeah. Percentages of the time they're really attentive to what's going on. All right, let's hear some of your comments if we could. Let's just start with the first page of it then. I asked you to take some margin notes here, so I'd like to hear things that you would like to pick up on. And it might be a big thing, it might be a little thing, but let's just work that first page. Just comments, and if you can be pretty loud so everybody in the room can hear you too, that'd be helpful. Okay, so somebody just start us off here.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is it necessary in lecture that we have them leave knowing everything? Are we eliminating the challenge we're giving the students by making lecture more like Sunday school, where as long as we keep their interest and keep them going and learn a couple things and we say it's okay? Or should lecture be a time when we lay out what we think they ought to get out of the course and have the expectation that they don't have to leave knowing it all, but they better learn it?
Yeah. So how about reactions to that? I've got thoughts, obviously, but just some thoughts to that. Let's talk to each other in this discussion, not just through me. But thoughts on that? I'll throw in my 2 cents and then you can jump in too. You know, I'm going to say that our students are in serious trouble if everything they need to know about something is coming from the limited amount of time that we have to lecture. I mean, we really don't have much time. to me, a lecture is not so much about the person presenting the lecture. That's how we think of it. We think, what are my slides like? You know, what are my stories like? You know, we start thinking about ourselves a lot. I think we need to really think about it from a student's perspective. What do we want the students to really take out of this experience? And Tim, I personally really agree with what you're saying. You know, I think that there's big danger if we're implying that we know everything there is to know about whatever it is that we're teaching. But I think that we really want to help steer them in some directions that are worth pursuing. That's something we can do because we've got some content expertise in that area. So I think if we can do that, I think it's helpful. I think we need to build some base of understanding that they can build on in some way. So I think it can be effective for building some real base type things too. So, other thoughts on that? Quick questions. All right, let's hear some other reactions you had just to this first page. Big thing, little thing, doesn't matter. Just what struck you as you were reading. Just jump in here. We don't have much time. So
I was surprised that the student assumed that the lecturer was the final authority on the topic. That surprises me so much.
And I think sometimes the more structured the environment, maybe the more they think that, the more official it's looking, you know, the less dialogue style that it is often conveys that. I mean, this setup right now, I don't like this setup, to be honest with you, but it implies that, I'm standing up here in front of all of you. You're all facing me. It implies that I know everything. Well, you're in big trouble if you're thinking that too, because there is so much knowledge sitting around this room right now. Okay. Other reactions on this? First one.
I also, on the beginning of the second paragraph, talks about a lecture and it doesn't promote verbal and I was thinking that often when it mentions students in passing in lecture, I think it's important in order to treat it as something new and internalized knowledge and in lecture, there's limited opportunity. There's critical thinking skills.
Exactly. That's where hopefully some of this type of thing can get you thinking a little more critically about what it is that you're reading. Okay, let's keep going. Other comments on the first page?
Maybe the students' retention level being that 70% at the first 10 minutes and 20% at the last 10 minutes. That is so low at the last 10 minutes. I guess that's regardless of how long the class is.
Let's, if we could, let's flip to page 2 here. And let's hear some reactions to this one now. Here we're talking a little more about what lecture is maybe good for. There are a lot of things. I mean, it's a big list. Comments on this part?
I was just struck by the third bullet point, when the instructor must communicate a large body of factual materials to a number of students. Because on the next page, it says that that's trying to cover too much is a negative strategy. So I was confused as to why they were both in those two different categories.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the question. How much is too much? And when are we stepping over that line? We try to meter in every single lecture. We've got the eyes start to glaze over, and usually we're there. Because it's all about short-term memory. So if a lot of it is new, it's repeatedly overloading that short-term memory. So I think there are times we can cover a lot of material if there's a decent base there. Other times it's not so much because it's repeatedly new stuff that's coming. It's more taxing, for some of us. Other thoughts on that one or other reaction? Yes, please. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So why could this be true? This one has always puzzled me too. I've thought about this a lot. So how could this be true? I believe it is, but how could it be true? So Alex?
Students that don't want to engage much, just see you, as you were saying, as a source of information. So just tell me. And they're not motivated, so all they want to hear is listen. And I think that might trigger the motivation in some areas, which has happened sometimes. But this is what I see with students that don't want to go beyond what is expected. Just tell me, and that's their only motivation.
I think you can make a case, too, for the idea that a good lecturer is enthusiastic in what they do. A person can see the passion they have for the discipline. And I do believe that that passion can be caught at times by other people. And I'll give an example, and Herb, this is going to make you feel bad here. But music is not my thing. And I don't even like to listen to it very much. We will still be friends after this. But I just am not into music very much. I was forced to go to this concert by my wife. And so I went, it was a Christmas concert. So we're sitting right in the middle. And we invited a former professor at the University of Colorado who used to give voice lessons in 3 different languages. This guy knew a lot about music. And his name was Morris. And Morris was sitting right next to me. And I'm listening to this concert, not knowing a thing about what's going on, just kind of counting the time till it's over with. And then Morris started talking to me. And he said, well, did you notice that? Can you look at this a little bit? Can you hear this over here? So he's just talking to me. All of a sudden, I'm starting to listen, starting to look. I'm really getting into it. And his enthusiasm, his knowledge level, rubbed off on me. All of a sudden, this kind of getting into this a little bit. But his enthusiasm came across. I'll bet most of you, too, have had a teacher at some point that was so psyched about the subject matter that all of a sudden you found yourself interested in maybe chemistry or something that perhaps you didn't have a lot of natural interest in. So I think it rubs off to some. All right, how about other thoughts with this one? We better get to our prizes.
Over here.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Steve?
Jay, on the top here it says discussion method is better suited for promoting critical thinking. Our friends David and Roger Johnson and so on. A couple weekends ago, I was at the American Men's Study Association, and one speaker there, who's the only male in a gender women's study program at SUNY Albany, was saying that I would like to know your thoughts on this, that the lecture was more a patriarchal kind of thing, the stand and deliver, where all the classes in women's studies were more or less like this, where people are sitting around, and it's a more feminine-friendly kind of delivery. I was wondering what you thought about that as far as gender differences.
I think there are some definite gender differences, and even how you physically set up rooms, I think, can make a difference in terms of effectiveness, those lectures. Probably not going to go into that one too much, but
something to think about that I had never thought about.
Yeah. Let's come back if we could here. We're fighting the clock here a little bit too, but let's see if we do have some winners here. And there are prizes connected with this thing too. So how about the first one? Let's do this in a really scientific way. I'm going to read it, and you just answer just out loud. Students retain 90% of the information they hear in the first 10 minutes. Agree, disagree?
Disagree.
Disagree. How much was it? 70%. Okay, roughly 70%. Students retain about 40% of the information they hear in the last 10 minutes.
Disagree.
Okay, about 20. It's really pretty minuscule, about 20%. And they're packing up their backpacks, and you know what that looks like. Okay. Third one, lecturing most effective when promoting the learning of factual information. That wasn't agreed. Okay. So on Bloom's taxonomy, if you're talking knowledge level, comprehension level, lectures can be pretty good for that. That's that base of knowledge we're talking about that you often need to do something meaningfully with, with some kind of interaction. Lecturing is the most effective method when students need to analyze, synthesize, and integrate material.
Disagree.
Disagree. Lecturing effective when introducing content to material whose students' motivation level or interest level is limited. That, believe it or not, was agreed. But the caveats, I think, has got to be that you have to have some dynamic qualities, I think, as a part of what you're doing. The passion has to come through. Okay, how about 6? Most common errors is trying to cover too much material. Great. We've all been there, done that, right? Okay, 7, cause-effect is an example of organizational principle.
Agree.
It is? Okay. Note-taking by students has been shown to interfere with the learning process. That, believe it or not, is a disagree, okay, with the caveat that there are some students that are probably better served by having lecture notes, by having the PowerPoints, and then just being able to really think and process. what's going on. But generally speaking, note-taking is a helpful thing. Okay, and then number 9, that idea of the recap thing of about 2 to 5 minutes will triple student recall material. That's near the end. That one actually is a disagree. Okay, it will double though. Okay, so I played games with that. It is a double one. Okay, and number 10, that idea of the pause about 3 times for them to really process. How about that one?
Agreed.
That one was an agree. That one was an agree. All right, any group that finished up with all 10 out of 10 off the first one, I told you I'm giving prizes here. Right? How about any group with 9 of them? You got 9 right first time around.
Okay.
Over there?
In the east or west lot, where do I pick up the Lexus?
How many did you have?
About 2.
All right, how about anybody with 8? With 8 on that?
This is the first 2 columns you're talking about?
Yes. Yep. Anybody first time round? 7 right on. All right. So we got, holy cow, we got prices here. So we got about three groups to it. All right. So we had some options. Talking about the money, talking about the time, and this is our casita actually, or the Lexus. It's a possibility. I'm just going to throw in one other option here for our winners, and that would be the idea of like a thunderous round of applause. Just for your colleagues who were so bright on this panel. So that would be an option. Okay, well, thanks very much. If you didn't get a chance to read through the piece, go ahead and finish up on it. And then, like I said, there's roughly 35 strategies in here that do connect in some way, I think, pretty efficiently with lectures. And then today you saw a couple of them that you can use. The idea of the anticipation, a couple of them. But thanks much, and hopefully you can come back on the 5th, and we'll look at switch gears. It'll be still engagement, but it's going to be more about the whole reading process. Okay, thanks very much.